poppin', y'all? It is your boy, Guard E3, and welcome to the second half of our double-double. Of course, joining me on Coffee and Sports, the morning show, he is Mo Betta. How you doing, Mo?
I'm doing great on a Friday, getting ready to talk some hoops. Let's get into it.
All right. Well, I by the way, I love how you have ring culture for the win on there.
Oh yeah.
Listen, I know you're excited. We have the best 2 words in sports coming up on Sunday. Good morning, Jory.
Good morning, jury.
We have Game 7, and of course we've heard the noise. Shea wins that Finals MVP. Just lock it up. He's going into almost the top 5 point guard conversations immediately. So I might just be Nemo, but like ring culture is so overrated.
So is it a conversation worth having? Sure. But it has to be had by people with a genuine argument to make. The guy that brought it up a couple of days ago does not have a genuine argument to make. He's as big a part of ring culture as anybody has been. So no, he can't have that conversation. He's just the king of trying to drive narratives, and he's literally trying to drive narratives as usual for his own selfish reasons. Although I would ask this question, I know I've heard somebody say if Shea wins this title, like you said, he's a top 5 point guard all time. I can't do that. I think if he wins this title, he's had a great season. It's an all-time great season because he won the MVP. He's probably going to have a shot to win Finals MVP. His team wins the title. It's a great season. He was an MVP candidate last year. He has a really nice body of work, but I don't think his body of work is better than a lot of guys' body of work. What he will have over them is a title, and I think that's great. But in a weird way, Shea could be the blueprint for why people make the argument about ring culture, right? We're going to spring him top 5 all time, the one season, the one title. That's a lot. So I think there's a case to be made. My only pushback would be you don't play sports. You play sports because you love it, I would think. You love to compete. And I'm sure, yes, money's a part of it and accolades, but also to win. You want to win. You're not playing for the sake of playing. You want to win. And I don't know any great player that never said they didn't want to be the best at anything. So how do you become the best? You excel individually. I think you have to have some level of team success. I think that all that matters. I think those are factors. My question would be, when people say ring culture, who does that apply to? Tell me what players in today's NBA that applies to that because if you're playing right now, you shouldn't be thinking about where we're going to rank you top 10 all time anyway, unless your name is LeBron or Kevin Durant or Steph Curry or even James Harden. If you're part of the older guard, I think your legacy is your legacy. But if you're a younger player, 25 or under, how does that hurt you? Your goal should be to try to bring a championship to your franchise from the jump. That's not ring culture. That's normal. If I draft you and I sign you as a franchise player, I'm not signing you because I think you'll just be very good. I'm bringing you in because I think you're going to be part of what helps us ultimately win a championship. If you're some guy that comes in and you're like, I'm just going to settle for having a really good career and winning's not that important to me, I would love for you to say that in the interview so I can not draft you. Why isn't winning important? When did winning in sports not be important? I don't understand the mentality of a lot of today's athletes. They kind of want to win, but it doesn't matter that much. I didn't come up like that. I don't remember being like that. And I'm a good sport, but when I lost, I hated losing. and I can shake somebody's hand, but I can still be mad as hell about it. I hate it losing. These guys now, I think they're just so willing to give in to defeat, to give in, and I don't understand that.
No, it's funny. I've always been the same way. I remember I'd get so mad at losing, regardless of like what I do, no matter how good or bad I was at it. Like I was I used to play ultimate frisbee every summer. I was terrible at it, but I'd get so mad when I lost. It would drive me insane. But no, and it's funny what you said about like worrying about their legacy, because Mo, watching the game last night, it almost felt like Williams and Shea were. Well, it's almost like they were trying to play for themselves in that Finals MVP rather than winning the Finals. Like when you look at what made OKC so successful all year, a lot of that was predicated on ball movement and player movement. And last year, it looked like it was just a lot of Shea and J-Dub ISO ball. Like they were just trying to, secure that Finals MVP. But I don't think Dagnut's just randomly calling ISO ball in the first quarter. That's normally fourth quarter when the game gets tight. Like we've seen it all series. The first three is filled with great player and ball movement.
Right.
So I'm curious on Game 7. What does that look like? Because obviously the version of OKC that moves around and has great player and ball movement, that team can win a championship. But if Shea and Dub are more worried about, collecting Finals MVP and, Chet can't finish around the rim just like he hasn't been able to all series, then, well, this team might be going home empty-handed.
And that's a possibility. Look, I said it before. I was hoping for a Game 7. I wanted a great series. And I'm glad when we made our picks before the finals even started. I'm glad to be wrong. I'm glad the Pacers have pushed it to 7. I'll go a step further. They have a legit shot to win this series. Look, I know OKC is going back home, but there's a formula here. There's a mental pressure. There's anxiety that's going to be in the air of a Game 7. If the game is close and we're mid to late third quarter, whatever pressure OKC comes into that Game 7, it will quadruple if it's a tight game in mid third quarter. The Pacers are the road team. They came into this series an underwhelming underdog. If you're OKC and you're going to win this championship, and I'm not trying to be funny, because we want a great Game 7, but the truth is, I think OKC is going to blow the doors off of Indiana to win Game 7. If it's a dogfight and it goes back and forth and it's a one possession game, I think that favors the Pacers, because I think they thrive in those kind of situations. And I think OKC, with the weight of the world on their shoulders, that's going to be overwhelming.
And I completely agree with that. My prediction before the series started was OKC in 6. I added the caveat, if this goes to a Game 7, I'm picking the Pacers in Game 7. So I'm absolutely liking the Pacers in Game 7. And that's the tough part with OKC. And to me, that's the scary part. One team in OKC, it feels like they're the team that has like everything to lose. Right. They're the team that was supposed to be here. They were supposed to dismantle the Pacers in 5 games. Like, they have the league MVP. While the Pacers just, they were lucky. Apparently, according to everybody, they were lucky to get past, New York. They're lucky to be in the finals at all. Like, it feels like while there's always pressure in a Game 7 in the NBA Finals, it feels like that the Pacers don't really have that much to lose, because if they lose, it's one of those, they didn't even expect them to get this far, so great season, Indiana. But if the Thunder lose, they were a team of destiny before the season even started. So that pressure on the Thunder, that must be weighing heavily on them.
And how can it not? Like, we came into Game 6 thinking, Halliburton is going to be less than 100%, right? That's their best player, and he's going to be less than 100%. And I don't think he was 100% last night, but he was good enough. He looked about 70, 75%. But his effort and the things that he did well last night, facilitating, timely shots. He was terrific defensively, by the way. Even though the numbers don't show it in terms of scoring, he was a better player than Shea last night. He was a better player than J-Dub last night. I thought you hit it on the head with what you said to begin with. I really believe that J-Dub and Shea both were focused on not winning the game, but winning Finals MVP more than they were on winning the game. They were openly competing against each other without saying so. But if you watch their play and the lack of ball movement and how both was really like being very isocentric, getting away from what they do best as a team, it was out there. It was on full display. And I think Indiana took advantage of that. They took full advantage of that. This was not a good game. Trust me. You and I did the live, and we enjoyed doing the live, but we had a lot of time to talk about other things other than basketball because the game was decided a long time ago. This was not a competitive game. They got the brakes beat off of them. And I think going into Game 7, Indiana has all the confidence in the world. And if you're the Thunder, being at home, that's not a safe place in a Game 7. Your crowd can give you energy, but if the Pacers come out with purpose, they're going to take the crowd out the game. And if the crowd is quiet and is silent, look, I'm where you're at. You can tell me that OKC is a better team and they should win because I think they should. But my gut instinct is I think the Pacers are going to win Sunday night and be the NBA champions.
Yeah, no, I'd say it. If I'm the Pacers too, man, I'm gonna do it again on Sunday. I'm gonna try so hard to do little things, just try to pit Shea and J-Dub against each other. Try to like tease them into, kind of try to bait them into wanting that Finals MVP more. If you can take the ball movement out of the Thunder offense, then yeah, no, that series is probably just a wrap because. Man, that offense without the ball movement looked brutal. Like you're looking at going into the fourth, they had like 8 assists all game. It was not great. So, like I said, if I'm OKC, you got to be ready to play as a team. But also, somebody else who need to be better. The other member of their big three, Chet. While Chet still has provided some excellent defense, he has almost been a non-factor on offense. Especially in last night, I forgot he was on the court, which obviously shouldn't happen.
But what have we learned about Chet? He's as skilled and as talented as he is. There are things he can improve in his game. One is a mental approach. I even though you're the third option, I think you should approach and play the game like you're a number one option. He's that talented. But let's also remember, Chet, after a turkey dinner, probably weighs a full, 190, soaking wet. Like, he's light. Let's keep it a buck. He's light in the ass. And smaller players can guard him because he's light in the ass. That's a problem for him because he can get bullied when he's on the post or in a restricted area. I don't think he has to get necessarily bigger, but he's got to get stronger. He has to become stronger unless he plans on being exclusively more of a perimeter player than an actual big. Because I thought because they let them play last night, I thought when he had the ball, I thought Siakam, Turner at times, they just bullied him. And he's got to be more assertive.
And that's the funny part because on paper, you look at this and you're like, oh, this is a great matchup for Chet. He's 7'3", the tallest guy in Indiana. Miles Turner, he's not a true 7-footer. I think he's like 6'10", 6'11".
Right. So
you're kind of like, Chet should just kind of lord over everybody and just have easy looks at the rim. But that just hasn't been the case. This is an interesting stat to me, Mo. lowest field goal percentage by a center in an NBA Finals series since the merger. Both Chet and Miles Turner made the list in the top three. The top three is Chet. He's shooting 35% from the field. Number 3 is Miles Turner at 36.8. And then in the middle is just Patrick Ewing at 36%.
So that's interesting for 3 reasons. One, I'm not shocked about Chet and Miles Turner. I said this when we were doing the live. They really aren't post players. They're both face-up players. And they primarily shoot from distance. They're more pick and pop players than they are post-up players. So if their jump shot's not falling, they're not going to be nearly as efficient. So that doesn't surprise me. And the Patrick Ewing thing, I have to believe that came from the 94 series that he played in against Olajuwon, which today that looks like WWE wrestling. That was Greco-Roman grind. Talk about grinding it out. Very few people shot a good percentage in that whole series. I think Olajuwon was alone. But that didn't surprise me. And more importantly, I feel like when you watch the way Indiana deploys Miles Turner, they don't get him a lot of rim runs, even though he's pretty good at finishing at the basket when he can elevate. Everything he does seems to be pick and pop, and he's not really good at attacking the basket, especially off the bounce. Chet's more agile. Chet can actually put the ball on the floor. I'm actually surprised that he's not a little bit more efficient because he can create his own shot. Miles Turner can't. So it's a little shocking, but I don't think they've used Chet properly, and this is where coaching comes in. I think Dagnon's giving SGA and J-Dub the green light, but sometimes, too many times, Chet gets lost in the sauce, and they forget we've got a third guy that can create for himself and others, and they don't utilize Chet enough.
And you kind of see that. You see that a lot, too. Then it's kind of unfortunate where when those two start playing iso ball, Chet kind of gets left out in the cold, and a lot of these, a lot of players just you try to stay ready as best as you can when you haven't touched the ball in a while, but after a while, you just kind of go cold. If you haven't touched the ball in a couple minutes, you got to reheat up. But if you're not getting a lot of touches, then it's hard to do that. And Patrick Ewing's, by the way, was the '94 finals against Hakeem and the Rockets.
That makes sense. That nobody shot well, and that's maybe Olajuwon did, but I don't remember anybody else shooting well. Maybe Ricky Sam Cassell. I'm not sure.
I'll say that doesn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me if Patrick Ewing either final series made it, because man, he just drew terrible matchups for himself, being a primary post player. But yeah, you got to go against Hakeem, Tim Duncan, and David Robinson. Good luck. Like, those are your 2 finals matchups you get.
Yeah, so, and that second one against a lot of Robinson and Duncan, I don't even think he hardly played, because that was the year where he was injured like almost the entire season. He had some kind of calf injury. Remember, they got to the finals and he didn't play. Like, they got to the finals with Marcus Camby as their center. It wasn't Patrick Ewing. It was Marcus Camby, Sprewell, Allen Houston, Larry Johnson. Patrick Ewing was on the bench. So that was a different Patrick Ewing.
Yeah, that was definitely like, kind of beginning of the end for Patrick Ewing once he suffered that calf injury. That's how we ended up with the iconic Ewing in Orlando picture. So
that was painful.
Yeah, and I hated the notion from, some of these OKC fans. They're like, oh, OKC pushed us to a game 7 intentionally. I promise you they didn't. They're not going to chance a 1-game series now in Oklahoma City. Like, that home field is great, but the problem with a 1-game series, anything can happen now. Like, as much as, like, something bizarre, like, Case and Walms and, could go nuts. Like, you could also have some of these indie role players go crazy. We've seen, like, wild Game 7 performances before. Like, What about against my Bucks when Grant Williams won for 27? He's never doing that another day in his life.
Ever.
But
I think
got
Nembhard
hot.
could do it.
Say,
right? Can you see Nembhard going off? Maybe even Neesmith. Like it's one of those games where I do think somebody from either bench is going to have a big offensive game, and I'm leaning towards. Look, TJ McConnell truly believes nobody on the Thunder can guard him. In the last couple of games, I believe him. Nobody under the Thunder can guard him.
Yeah, to me, that's the problem. Like when I'm looking at role players that can go off, I think I can name like 4 Pacers I trust to go off before I hit a Thunder bench player.
That's
like
true.
when I say, obviously the first guy that comes to mind, Mathurin, McConnell. Then you start bringing in Neesmith off the bench. And then after that, then we start getting to guys like Caruso, Caruso's mixed in there somewhere.
Wiggins.
But out of the top 4 guys that I think could potentially go off the bench in a game 7, 3 of them are Pacers, which would not be great for Oklahoma City. So the bench is going to have to be ready to play, because if it avalanches like last night and the bench gets cooking for Indiana, I'm just not sure how the Thunder can counteract that.
That's why I think a tight game favors Indiana. I do. Look, there's a reason that they have 8 guys that average 10 or more points per game. They have 8 guys that average 10 or more points per game. That's crazy. But that's a testament to their balance and their depth. I do see a big game from Siakam. It's just a matter of, is Hallie going to go with him? And look, Hallie doesn't have to have a monster game. If he has a game similar to what he had in game 6 and he gets other guys involved and other guys go off, that's really what they need from him. The points are a cherry on top, but if they can get him to just be the high-level facilitator he is and he plays well on defense, that's more than enough.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how that plays out. To me, that's the beauty of Haliburton. Even if he's not scoring, he just impacts the game in so many ways that he can normally make up for it if he's not, putting the ball in the basket. He's making sure everybody gets involved, more active on defense. So,
but just for the record, I'm going to throw something out there. The Pacers win. And let's say Haliburton's Finals MVP. This is where we have to stay in reality with a bigger conversation. We're not going to say that Haliburton's a greater player than Reggie Miller. We're not going to say that. We're not. His body of work doesn't say he's a greater player than Reggie Miller. It will say he did something Reggie didn't do. He was part of a team that won a title. That's facts. But we're not crazy. I'm out. My pushback on the whole argument about ring culture is that what great player hasn't been respected for being a great player? Name the player and we can have the conversation. But tell me the great player that we don't respect or we don't mention. You can go way, way back. I'm aware of John Havlicek. I'm aware that he won 8 titles. I know all that. I know he was a great player. Who isn't respected? I know that before Moses Malone came along, Doc took the Sixers to the finals multiple times. Clearly, Doc was a great player. And then he won a title with Moses. Who isn't respected? James Harden is going to walk into the Hall of Fame. But we can't pretend like he hasn't had some shortcomings in the postseason. He's still a great player, but every great player doesn't operate on the same plane. They're tiers for a reason. And LeBron's like, there shouldn't be. If there's not tiers, then why are you trying so hard to chase after a guy you call a ghost if there's no tiers? Of course it matters to you. You wouldn't do the things that you've done if it didn't matter. You wouldn't ring chase. It matters. And I think winning a ring, it also matters how you do it. If Gary Payton winning that ring with the Heat, I'm sure it matters to him, but it doesn't hit the same way had he done it when he was one of the best players in the league, right? he won a ring when he was a role player. That's not the glove. That's Gary Payton the mitten winning a ring. Not the same thing. If Karl Malone had won a ring the year that he went to the Lakers and the Pistons beat the brakes off him, but had the Lakers won, I can safely say Karl Malone was not going to be Finals MVP. He wasn't going to be their second or third best player, but he would have still got a ring. But that wouldn't have been MVP, one of the greatest players to ever do it, Karl Malone. That would have been Karl Malone, what was left of him, Karl Malone. It's different how you do it. I can credit KD with this. When he went to Golden State, clearly still in his prime. And it showed because he was the best player on those teams. Whether you like the fact that he went to Golden State or not, he was better. I get that Steph's more beloved. I even get that ultimately in the bigger picture, I rank Steph higher than KD. But in those two titles, KD was their best player.
No, absolutely. Yeah, some people will try to do the Halliburton over Reggie Miller argument. I'm already kind of prepared for that. I'd say, especially, I think the guy who they'll actually probably try to argue, maybe not even just Hallie, but they'll probably also try to argue Pascal Siakam over Reggie Miller. So that's going to be an awkward conversation to have. And, like, Cottrell, it's funny, like, I agree with what LeBron said. It was just him being the one to deliver that message is just the funniest thing ever to me.
It is the wrong person. He's so extra. No, you can't do that. You can't do that.
But yeah, no, I do think that Rick is absolutely wrong in saying SGA will be greater than Chris Paul and Steve Nash with the ring.
It's insanity. That's insanity.
It's too early because, like, hoping for a long career for SGA, but for some reason this would be the last season of his career. Like, taking his career as a whole, would we really put him over Chris Paul and Steve Nash? No, because the body of work isn't long enough yet. I think he could very well pass both of them. He's on a trajectory to do so, but also career, developments aren't linear. So this could be the peak, and he could drop off. This could be the start of something just historic, but like the problem is, I just don't know what comes next.
But isn't that the beauty of sports? If he wins, maybe this elevates him. And let's say SGA wins another MVP within the next 3 years. And his OKC Thunder win another. I'm not saying back-to-back, but let's say they win a second title within 4 years, right? That's a great resume still, right? If you say we won 2 titles in a 5-year span, that's great. That's still great. But you're right. We don't know what comes next. What if it goes the other way? What if instead of this is the beginning of the Thunder dominating the West and potentially winning multiple titles, that this is a one-off and they don't recover if they come up short? What if they're just good but never make it back to the finals again? You don't know. That's the beauty of sports. You don't know. When that Thunder team in 2012 went there and Harden and Ibaka were 21, and I believe Durant and Westbrook were 22, that young core, I thought we're going to see these kids in the finals a couple more times, and they never made it back. You never know.
No, absolutely. And I thought we were going to see that 2012 Thunder team in a couple more finals, but yeah, it just never materialized. And of course, and the thing with now, like in the NBA, like you're probably not going to see another guy win like 5 titles anytime soon. When we're talking about like the new like CBA with the aprons that completely restrict, team building like never before, like, it's very realistic that maybe like 3 titles becomes the new like 5 in a sense that, I can't go out and just get whoever I want. I can't go out and build the team like, even the 2010s and beyond, before that, even the early 2020s, like there was a luxury tax, but I could still get out whoever I wanted. I just, have to pay that luxury tax, as long as it stayed within the salary cap.
And look, I think by doing this, it puts more emphasis on the draft, right? You always have to draft well, but I think there's more emphasis because now that quick fix where you could go out in free agency, like you said, and get whoever you want, it's not as easy as it was before. You have to draft and develop your young guys better than ever in today's NBA. Look, the Thunder have done something really well. Whether they win the title or not, the trade that brought them SGA also brought them assets that got them some of the guys they have. They've drafted well. They've developed their talent well. So the blueprint is there. I don't know if they're going to be the team that masters it and wins multiple titles, but I think that is the process of where the NBA is going to go now. You're not going to have these quick fix big threes anymore. If you're going to have a big three in today's NBA, two of the guys are going to be two guys you drafted. Maybe you go out and get the third guy in free agency or something like that, but more than likely now, the way the system is structured, it's going to be a couple of those guys are going to have to be part of your franchise, and you develop them, and it happens organically. It's not going to be the quick fix of two guys coming from two separate teams, and I don't think you're going to see that anymore.
No, and I completely agree with that. And I will say I would love to see if they want to put so much emphasis on drafting, I would love to see them reward teams that like draft well, right? Like I know you can, for example, like if you want to emphasize drafting, like I don't know, what if you gave the guy you drafted a max contract that only like 70% of it counted against the salary cap or something like that? I would just love to see, like, if you're going to, like, penalize teams for going out and making trades and free agents, at least, put more of an incentive, maybe a financial one, like, to, actually drafting well. And then we can really see kind of a boost. But even, like, with these aprons, you draft well, and you're just going to lose half your players anyway because you can't fit them all under the second apron. So I would just love to see it if maybe like the full amount of the contract didn't count towards the salary cap as a way to reward these teams that do draft and develop well.
I like what you're saying, and I actually agree with that. I think that's brilliant. But if they do that, let's be honest. That means teams like Sacramento will never be rewarded. Like they'll never be rewarded. Teams like Charlotte will never be rewarded. Like every once in a while they'll get it right, but more times than not, they consistently get it wrong. But I like the idea of rewarding teams that draft well. Look, where you go, the culture that you come up in, I do think that greatly impacts young players. And I don't care how talented you are, I think that does have an impact on your career. So I love that idea, by the way, Brett. We need to pin that.
Hey, no, I'm down for it. And I agree, Cottrell. Ring culture as a whole is dumb. Like, I get that. Just because, like you said, the logic is too inconsistent with it. Like, and some guys also just get, over it. Like, you can be a better player without a ring than somebody with one or even two or even three. That doesn't really matter to me.
I 100% agree. But I think that's a double-edged sword. Like, no one ever said, even when he was winning all the titles, that Bill Russell was the best player. The guy that was considered the best player was Wilt Chamberlain. Bill Russell was recognized as the greatest winner in basketball. That's why when dummies say stuff like, well, Russell's got 11 rings and nobody's saying he's better than Jordan, because he wasn't a better player. He is the greatest winner in basketball. But as an individual talent, Bill Russell wasn't the greatest player. Great leader, did a lot of things. But we talk a lot about stacked squads. Don't get me started on how stacked those Celtics squads were. When guys on your bench are in the Hall of Fame, that's stacked. That's a whole nother level of stacked. But that's completely different. It's why when they call themselves Laker fans, but they're really Kobe fans, and they say, I got Kobe number 2 all time because he got 5 rings, LeBron's got 4 rings. That doesn't hit the same way. Yes, Kobe has more rings than LeBron, but look at I'm not even talking about all-time leading scorer and things of that nature. The other accolades: LeBron's a 4-time MVP, a 4-time Finals MVP. Kobe's 1 MVP, 2 Finals MVP. We're talking about the bigger picture things. LeBron is a better basketball player than Kobe Bryant was. He's a better basketball player than Kobe Bryant was, in my opinion. And while people want to mask up and say Kobe is Jordan's twin, no, he's not his twin. He's more like if you like whole milk, a lot of people like 2% milk. Kobe's like 2% Jordan. He's not Michael Jordan. There's similarities, but their careers did not hit the same way, and they did not play out the same way. I don't think ring culture is new, and I hate it when people act like it just started. It was a thing. It could have been a thing back in the 60s, but we didn't talk about it. We didn't see it, but what we know, what's the history, Brett? Who won all the time? The Celtics. There was no ring culture because only one team was winning. They won 11 titles. And then Magic and Bird came along in the 80s, and they dominated an entire decade. You can't say ring culture. The same two dudes was dominating the league. But it was important enough to Isaiah Thomas to try to break through, which he did. And eventually it was important enough for Michael Jordan. Before Michael Jordan won his first title, he was already the best player in basketball, but they were saying he's done everything but do what? Win a title. He had to break through. I don't think ring culture is brand new. Charles Barkley didn't leave the Sixers to play with the Suns because he loved Phoenix. He left because he wanted a shot at winning a title with a better team. Clyde Drexler didn't ask Portland to trade him to his hometown Rockets for no other reason than he had a chance to win a title, which he ended up doing. It's not new. Great players. It's great to have numbers, and it's great to have individual success, but you want to win too. You want to win because the reality is when your career is done, yeah, you're going to get compared to other great players. Charles Barkley, to me, is underrated. The guy was 6'4", maybe 6'5", and was snatching down boards against guys that are 7 feet or bigger, and was terrific in the open floor. I'm trying to figure out who's never acknowledged how great Charles Barkley was. I know I did. I've acknowledged how great Patrick Ewing was. The argument is, who are we leaving out with ring culture when we're not appreciating their greatness? Chris Paul hadn't won anything, but I know damn well he's had a better career than I think he's had a better career than Steve Nash, and Steve Nash is a 2-time MVP. And I'm a fan of Steve Nash, but I don't think he's a better basketball player than Chris Paul.
Say Steve Nash was almost. Chris Paul was almost an MVP. He has that runner-up, and he had a strong season. And of course, Kobe won the MVP that year. Would Kobe have been Jordan if he played in the 80s, 90s? We'll never know. But
I'll answer that no, because he shoots 45% from the field. No, he wouldn't have been him.
And the thing with that is, like, Kobe did model his game after Jordan. So my guess is if he played in like the 80s, he probably would have modeled his game after somebody else. He probably would have tried to model his game after like Skywalker, David Thompson, or something.
He modeled his game after Jordan. I think nobody would disagree with that. But as great as Kobe was also also one of the worst shot takers in the history of the NBA. He could have 3 people on him, and that dude he's still raising up. Kobe's great player, but his shot selection, and this is late into his career, Kobe was a chucker. That's just who he was.
Hey, I think that's fair. That's a big reason why it's so funny. His regular season and playoffs, like field goal percentages, were always so similar. Because I guess if you're taking those tough shots in the regular season, and it's no different for him in the postseason.
And I'm not, by the way, anybody that's a Kobe fan, I'm not telling you that Kobe Bryant's not an all-time great. I just heard a dumb argument from your guy, Brett, Rashard McCants, your guy, was making this untrue argument. He said before Kobe passed, R.I.P. to Kobe, before he passed, when Kobe retired, Kobe was already ranked universally 1 or 2 all time. That is not true. When Kobe Bryant retired, the debate was, Where's Kobe at? 7, 8, 9, 10. It was somewhere in that range. 7, 8, 9, 10. Nobody had Kobe anywhere near 1 or 2. And the reality is, for whatever reason, and we've talked about this at times, after his tragic early passing, it did seem like somehow he got pushed forward. And then the conversation began like, well, I think Kobe should be right behind Jordan. Or some people he said Kobe should be number 1, which I don't get that. All due respect, as great as he was, I'm not looking at what your talent is. I'm looking at what your career was and what you did with your talent. Kobe had a great career, but he didn't have a better career than LeBron James. He didn't have a better career than Michael Jordan. He certainly didn't have a better career than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And whatever you think of Magic Johnson, he didn't have a better career than Magic Johnson. He didn't. How am I going to rank? Because Kobe has 5 titles, that's great. Well, where do we separate them? Well, Kobe's got 2 Finals MVPs. That's great. He's got a regular season MVP. Magic's got 3 regular season MVPs. I believe he has 3 Finals MVPs. There's a separation. There's levels to this. LeBron's got 4 Finals MVPs. I've always said this. A Finals MVP has more value to me than 1 regular season MVP. It's a Finals MVP. It matters more.
See, a take I will fall on the sword for is the 90s is the worst era of basketball since color TV was introduced.
Well, I would disagree. I didn't get to watch basketball in the 60s and the 70s, but I got a portion of the 80s. I disagree. What it was we always talk about intensity and great games. They were great games, but they weren't high-scoring games because of the way the game was played. That had nothing to do with the talent. That had to do with how the game was played. People are crying in today's NBA when there's any kind of physicality introduced. Lord help these guys if they had to play in the 90s as much as they cry now. Like, they cry about getting touched now. I can't even imagine what they would do if they played in the 90s. Half of them, especially the really, really soft ones that are playing 15, 16, 17 years, you can take about 7 years off that career if they played in the 90s.
I would actually argue that like the early 2000s might have been more unwatchable than the 90s. Like,
I would say from 2000, I would make the case from 2000 to like 04, 05. It was pretty brutal. That's the exact time period I was thinking of because like I was trying to think like 90s. Okay, 90s had, some really great competition happening. Early 2000s, man, it was just you knew who was winning. It felt like until the Pistons broke the trend. It was going to be a team from the West, either the Lakers or Spurs. And when you got to like the NBA Finals, it was just ugly every time. Was the finals great? Because look, I'm a Lakers fan, so I'm gonna tell you, I enjoyed the three-peat very much. But the series versus the Sixers, game 1 was special because of what Iverson did, but the series wasn't a great series. When they played against Indiana, when they won their first title, that wasn't a great. That was probably the closest series they had to being a great series because that was a 6-game series that could have easily gone 7, except Kobe having that incredible overtime when Shaq fouled out. I think it was game 4. That could have gone 7. But the series against the Nets, come on, man, that was brutal.
Yeah, that was funny. Richard Jefferson saying, I had to wait 15 years for a real chance at a ring yesterday. Even the poor guy knew when he was in New Jersey that they had no chance.
I mean, remember did you watch? I know you watched those finals. Do you remember when they tried to put Kenyon Martin on Tim Duncan?
Yeah.
Come on, man. And look, I get what Cottrell said. Yes, you could. Did Steph had a better career than Kobe? So I want to throw in another part about being a star or a mega star or whatever. There is your aura about you, that aura, the mystique about you. Kobe's got this incredible mystique. Like, he's got a mystique that almost rivals Jordan's, I would say, for whatever reason. Is Steph's career better than Kobe's? I would say it's right there in a lot of ways. Steph is look, Steph's done a lot of firsts, right? He is the first unanimous MVP in NBA history. He will always be that, the first. And he's won 4 titles. He's got a finals MVP. He's got 2 regular season MVPs. Basketball is not a game of one-on-one. If we were going a one-on-one tournament, obviously Kobe would murk Steph. But what is Steph going to be remembered for, Brett? He changed the way we play basketball now, did he not? He literally changed the way we play basketball. It is not uncommon now to see someone take more threes than they take twos. That's a direct result of the impact that Steph had on the league, and it matters. So I do think that, and I think that's what catapults Steph into the top 10, that impact.
No, absolutely. I think Kobe's, a lot of his like aura comes from the fact that I think a lot of people now just really love watching the highlights over like full games. So like, of course they'll see all the great, like, awesome one-on-one moves Kobe had, being the terrific talent he was, but only watching the highlights, you miss like a lot of the really bad, brutal shooting nights, a lot of the misses, just a lot of the negative things that happen on the court, that you really need to fully assess a player. So it's to me, it's why, like, Kobe got to jump. Even guys like, every offseason I go on Twitter and it's like, oh, this guy would be a top 3 in the NBA, and it's literally like King's DeMarcus Cousins. Like, no, he wouldn't. Like, let's not do that. So I almost think that nowadays, with people just almost wanting to watch highlights instead of the full games, it's just adding to different guys who, aura unintentionally.
I think that has a lot to do with it. I would agree. And I would disagree with Cottrell. The 80s, no one shot the 3 ball like that. And no one shot the 3 ball as a primary weapon until late in the 90s. So it wasn't prevalent. That wasn't a thing. And I think what's get lost is the same way Michael Jordan and Larry Bird kind of broke the mold of how guys played. Michael Jordan broke a mold too, because he came into a league that was built inside out, which meant everybody typically drafted centers. You either had a great 5 or a great 4. It was the way the league was built. And he kind of came in the league and broke the mold. And when he broke the mold, they didn't go, yo, we need to get a great center to play with Mike. No, you didn't need a great center with Mike. You just needed a serviceable center. Mike could be the center. Put Mike in the post. He broke a mold. He was different. And so he came up in an era where Prime Ewing, Prime Robinson, Prime Olajuwon, Prime Mourning, Mutombo, we can keep going, Smiths and on. That was part of his era. And along with those guys came the forwards, a Barkley, a Malone, a Kemp. We can keep going. Like, that was his era. And it was a low-scoring era because, yes, hand-checking was a thing. You could get in somebody's ass. And if you've ever played basketball and you've hand-checked somebody or been hand-checked, completely different. Completely different. So unless you've played in the era or you've seen one of your favorite players that play in today's Candyland era play with hand-checking, those comments are just comments, but they're not based on a reality. I'll never know what Steph Curry could do if somebody could dig in his ass off the ball like you could in the 90s. I'll never know what he could do off the dribble when somebody's got their forearm in his chest, and that's okay, and they can ride him. So I'm not, again, that era isn't easier compared to today's era where everything is about stats and putting up numbers. It isn't that they got more talented, it's they've been babied, and it's an easier era to score in. I would ask you in today's NBA, who can't score? Who can't put up numbers? It's simple. You're going to the free throw line if you stare at somebody hard enough in today's NBA. It's not apples and oranges. We're talking about literally 2 completely different worlds. That was Krypton, and this is Earth. Not the same thing at all.
It's one of those things that when it comes to trying to compare the two, it's always tough because, they hadn't fully embraced the 3-point line. We hadn't really seen a team fully embrace the 3-point line. And I think the closest team in the 90s that did that is probably like the 94 Rockets when they put Robert Horry at the 4. But
right, which is why, so it's like, so when I go on TikTok and I'll do a matchup of this player versus this player, I do it for a reason. It's for a theme, and I do it because I know I'm right. So it's not like if I threw Allen Houston, remember Allen Houston from the Knicks in today's era, and Allen Houston was struggling today. Allen Houston in today's era is giving you 25 a night easy, and would be one of the better players in today's NBA. And I'm not talking about, well, he can't play defense like Klay Thompson. No. But he's better offensively. He can put the ball on the floor. He had a handle. You can go on YouTube right now and go see Allen Houston drop 53 on Kobe's head. That's on Kobe's head. And if you put him in this Candyland NBA, he's better. You put Glenn Rice, who's a legit 6'9", with his ability to shoot in this era, he's better because it's easier. For them playing in this era, it'd be like playing in a practice or pickup game. This is a watered down NBA.
Sam, we're excited for Sunday night too, Gene. It's going to be absolutely terrific. I'm curious though, Mo. Do you think they call him the extender, but do you think they bring in our good friend Scott Foster to ref Game 7? Because that would be an additional storyline because the OKC Thunder have not lost a game where Scott Foster was the official.
Well, OKC needs every advantage they can get. So if I'm them, I'm hoping Scott Foster shows up. But even if he does, I don't think it's a lock they win. This is going to come down to Rick Carlisle, and it's going to come down to SGA and Hallie and all the intangibles. I feel like losing Game 6. We always talk about the Thunder going on the avalanche and blowing somebody out. I really do think that Indiana's walking into Game 7 with all the momentum in the world, and I don't think Scott Foster's enough to help OKC.
Yeah, I say we'll see if he can work some of his magic. Seeing Scott Foster out there with OKC is like when you're watching the NWO back in the day, and Charles Robinson, a little Nate is the ref, and he's in the NWO's corner. That's what it feels like half the time with Scott Foster. Like when you see him with OKC, but this could be a top 5 NBA Finals of the 21st century. Very well could be. I
think it could be.
I would say we've had 2 crazy comebacks, like 2 more close games and 2 blowouts. So
I need a great Game 7 to top it off, though, right? We need a great Game 7.
That's what it feels like. If we get like a back and forth Game 7 that comes down to the final, it comes down to the wire, then regardless of the winner, I think this just does become a top 5 Finals of the 21st century. It's been that good. It's definitely so far been my, it would definitely jump to my second favorite Finals this decade. Of course, the Bucks are always one for me, but that's also a little biased, a lot of bias, but that was also a great final series, to be clear. They had like 4 iconic endings in like a row. So 09, 2012, 20 to the 2015, 6. Yeah. Say, of course, like I said, all I want Sunday, give me a good game, close game. Don't care who wins.
I don't care who wins, but I think Indiana is going to win. I don't care who wins. I don't. I have no dog in this fight. But look, I'm hoping for not just a great all-time great Game 7. I'm hoping for a strong back and forth between the 2 stars. I want the stars to all show up and show out in Game 7. I want there to be little moments where it's nuanced and Rick Carlisle calls a play out of a timeout. And you know what I mean? I want coaching. I want coaching to matter. I want everything. I'm greedy. I want great coaching, and I want defense, and I want Matherin to go off the bench. I want Caruso to do his thing off the bench. I want all of it.
Cottrell, what are you doing next week? Next week, Thursday at 8:00. Because
did he say he wanted to debate the GOAT?
Yeah.
We don't have to debate it. We can talk about Michael Jordan right now if you want. We can talk about him all day.
Well, I say
I would talk about him all day.
I would love to have Cottrell on and one next week because
I love Cottrell.
Listen, next week is the NBA draft. You know, that's right up Cottrell's wheelhouse. So Cottrell, next week, if you want to come on, definitely would love to have you.
NBA draft, anything college related, you gotta always turn to College Cottrell because he's the inside man. He knows everything. I'm gonna always defer to Cottrell and his expertise when it comes to college.
I got you. No, that's fair enough. I'm still confused as to what we're gonna see on Thursday. I'm confident that I got the top three down, like the top three picks for the draft down.
I want Daryl Morey to be Daryl Morey. Trade that pick.
I heard rumors that they were talking to Utah about potentially trading the pick, so dropping down to 5. But that would be interesting. I don't know. It feels like that if Daryl Morey keeps the pick, then it's going to be Flag. It's going to be Flag. It's going to be Harper. It's going to be. I'm still convinced it's going to be VJ at 3 if they keep the pick. But after that, it gets wild. Like, for example, the Hornets are loaded with wings, so I doubt they go, ace. So they probably go Trey Johnson or Con Knuppel, which I've seen both of them mocked to the Hornets at 4. And then Utah's interesting because they could possibly use like an Ace Bailey, but also they could also go like Trey Johnson. So it's just so interesting to see, how is this going to go? Like, how will this lottery play out? Con is a bust, book it. Perfect pick for the Hornets, it sounds like.
So cold. I'm intrigued by this draft because I do think there are going to be some draft night moves and stuff like that. Always excites me. Yeah, Gene said he's down for a watch along, so I'm in. I'm all in. I'm invested in it.
Yeah, I know for Thursday that would be round 2, which we know there's some great talent to come out of round 2. Obviously Nikola Jokic came out of round 2. Guys like Manu Ginobili came out of round 2. So I know, bro. I'm excited about the draft too. Yeah, I completely agree with that. When I watch VJ, I'm telling you, when I watch VJ, I see a lot of my player comp on my puppy prospects profile for was Victor Oladipo. He reminds me a lot of Oladipo the way he plays ball.
He's got that kind of burst. Wow.
No,
I didn't know he had that kind of burst.
He was like a 36% three-point shooter in college. He's got some good burst to him. He's got some athleticism. I think what he's gonna be is like a supercharged role player who can maybe like be a fringe all-star, which is to me is kind of what Oladipo like in that range was.
In his prime, I know it's a small window before he messed up his, I think it was foot. Was it his foot or ankle? Oladipo, his burst, he didn't just have a great first step. He had a great first, second, and third step. Like when he blew by you, he was by you. He was that quick.
Yeah. Walter Clayton. Yeah. I've seen I think one of my favorite mock spots for Walter Clayton is 25 to Orlando. I know Orlando needs guard help, and I think he'd be a great pickup for them. Especially since they need a little bit of an offensive punch.
I think what I like about Clayton is people get caught up in his size, but if you're a hooper and you're a bucket is a bucket. I don't care what your size is. Clayton, look, I'm not the biggest Trae Young fan, but he is a talented dude. And he's not the biggest guy in the world, and nobody's shutting him down. And I'm not saying Clayton has Trae Young's skill set, but he does have the ability to create for himself and shoot from distance. I think he's a walking bucket, so he's going to be an impact player. I agree with that.
Yeah, and that's why I think for a team like Orlando would be perfect. Orlando is a team that struggled to, generate consistent offense. So if they could get like a spark plug off the bench that, they could put in a pinch to get some consistent offense going, that'd be great for them. And then it's been a great time, Mo, but we are at our hour mark.
We blasted through that one because we got into some fun back and forth with the chat, especially my guy Cottrell. Gene was in the house. Jory came through. And it's always fun because I love going back and forth with Cottrell because I know his knowledge and I know he does it all in fun. So it's all love.
No, absolutely. So anything you want to add before we get up on out of here, Mo?
No. Thank you, chat. Thank you guys for coming through. Appreciate all the comments. You guys being so active. Guys, make sure you check out all the great content we have at Wire to Wire Network. Wire to Wire Network, we appreciate you.
No, absolutely. And you can, catch Mo and I next Tuesday on Meaty Boys podcast, and we'll start the whole process over again. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Definitely appreciate everybody. Check out Passionate Precision. Sure. And all our great shows this weekend for you. Enjoy Game 7. Thank you very much for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of your night.